Yeah, so basically, I had reached a ceiling with my makeup artistry, and I had been doing it for, a good amount of time at that point. And I was also a single mother. I have, at the time, I have 2 kids now, but at the time I had my daughter, Erica, and she, I was making good money. Don't get me wrong. I was making 6 figures, but it just like, living in LA is expensive, and she was going to private school, and I was like, what am I going to do? And I also knew that, I come from very, modest, beginnings. And I knew at some point I was going to have to take care of my family, probably my parents, and, I'm going to need to make more money. So how am I going to monetize this career of mine? What am I going to do to make more money beyond as much, where I'm making now? So fast forward to Girlfriends getting this job, being the department head on the show called Girlfriends, which is Tracy Ellis Ross. I don't know if it's kind of like having a resurgence right now on Netflix. It's all over the place. But at the time, it was just a cast of pretty much unknown actors, and it was kind of an experiment. It was Kelsey Grammer's first show that he was producing under his company, and Mara Akil-Brock was the writer and producer. And so I had worked with her on Moesha. So we came together, and it was kind of like, this experiment. And that's where Beautyblender was born. I had to find ways to make makeup look natural, because suddenly when you shoot high def, it's really kind of technical, but when you shoot high def as opposed to film, you see everything. Like you see pores, you see scars, you see little hairs, you see everything. So I needed to find a way to do beautiful makeup on these women, but make them look like they weren't wearing makeup with high definition. Easy to do on film, not so easy with high def. But now it is, because there's a Beautyblender.
Well, what's crazy is like, and maybe some of the men need to hear this, but I was watching this cooking show the other day randomly, and it's super high def, and there was a male chef, and they probably put makeup on these guys to, when they're under the lights, but like it didn't blend anything.
They didn't use the Beautyblender.
The mask.
Yeah, and so you just look like a thing, and I was like, oh, like me, but you would probably never notice that. But now, I mean, listen, doing this show, I'm learning a lot, but I remember seeing like, oh, it looks like that guy like has just like
makeup on.
Yeah, you can see all the makeup.
Unblended makeup on.
Yes. Should have the Beautyblender, right?
I would tend to think that's probably more of a skill set from the makeup artist. But
better not mention the network that did that.
Yeah, don't mention the network.
I'm sorry, makeup artists.
Let's send them a Beautyblender.
Let's send them.
So I want to know how you had an aha moment. Was it an aha moment, or was it like a slow build for you to develop this?
Well, I had been actively executing different techniques on camera to see what would work best. I would go and look at the dailies when we would shoot, and just, or if I didn't and someone said, hey, Rea Ann, this looked a little weird, can you look at it? And I would look at it and try to fix it. So I was on the hunt for something. I didn't know I was going to be creating something that, was going to, sell around the world, 17 a minute or some crazy thing my team has calculated. But no, it was kind of by accident. But there was an aha moment. I mean, when I finally realized this thing works, I had that moment of like, okay, so how do I get this made? Because basically what I had done was I had taken those triangular sponges that everybody at the time, you could buy at the supermarket, you could buy at the drugstore, you could buy at the beauty store. They were just triangular sponges cut like flat triangles. And I shaped it into what is now an egg shape or a little teardrop, because I was trying to take the sharp edges off. Because like your friend or the person you saw on
I wouldn't call him a friend, but
right.
Yeah.
Okay, I corrected myself. The person on the...
I would never be friends with someone that does makeup like that. I'm just kidding.
I would.
I'm totally joking.
The line of demarcation that a straight edge leaves is something that you have to pay attention to. You have to be a detailed person. Not all makeup artists are detail oriented, right? They're more, holistically detail oriented, not like individually like foundation. So I started to cut the edges off of those sponges and came up with that shape, and then realized I needed to make it bigger. There were tweaks. It was like the aha moment was like, oh God, this thing works. Because what I was doing, I got the job because I was an airbrusher. So airbrushing makeup was used a lot in special effects makeup artists, the makeup like horror movies and that kind of stuff, but not really with beauty makeup. But someone somewhere down the line came up with this rule at the time that the best way to apply makeup in high definition was to use an airbrush. So when they set out to find the makeup artist for girlfriends, it had to be somebody that knew how to airbrush. So I know how to airbrush. And I was starting my morning every day airbrushing the girls. But what I noticed was that, okay, I would airbrush them, we'd leave the trailer, we'd walk to stage, we'd start shooting. And when the director would yell cut and we'd have to go in to do touch-ups, I would have to remove them and bring them to my makeup trailer or my makeup table setup where there was electricity so I could use the airbrusher. And if you've ever worked on a set, I mean, the last thing you want to do is remove your actors from the set. The last thing you want to do on an ensemble female cast is remove one female actor from the set, because then suddenly the rest of the girls all want to leave too. They're like, oh, she's going? Oh, I'm going to the bathroom. I'm going to my trailer. I'm going to craft service. I'm going. So then suddenly, I'm going to go make a phone call. Suddenly, I became like persona non grata. Like, don't come in here. Don't even, like, you can't take them off set. And I'm like, okay. So that was the impetus really for me to find a tool or a way to keep this airbrush look without using an airbrush. So that was how Beautyblender was made. It was cutting the edges off the sponge. Then, you're supposed to, for everybody listening who has never used a Beautyblender, if you ever use a Beautyblender, and I can't talk about the other sponges that try to be a Beautyblender, but my sponge Beautyblender, you must use wet. And that seems really counterintuitive for when you put makeup on. You think like, oh, it's going to, dilute your makeup or it's going to change the formulation. It does not. What it does is it makes the sponge not thirsty anymore. So when you're bouncing it on your skin, it's actually pushing the makeup out onto your face. If the sponge is thirsty, it's like, ooh, yeah, suck it in, suck it in. But if it's wet and not thirsty, it's like, oh, I don't need it.